Okay, more Digimon friend videos. I brought out several Pokemon plushies to go with the Digimon piggy banks. Because Digimon and Pokemon can be friends. I also have Guardians of the Galaxy because they're a weird bunch of friends. Um, and I'm weird. This episode, this little video, is going to be about Sukamon and Chuumon, and then Centarumon. They're all introduced in the same episode, so I just kind of put them all together. The same thing will be when I do like the Otamamon, Gekomon, and Shogun Gekomon, but that'll be a few videos down the line. So, Sukamon and Chuumon are first interacted with by Mimi and Palmon. This takes place during the time when Devimon has split all the Digidestins up onto different patches of File Island. You know, Ty and Matt end up interacting with Frigimon at this point in time. And for this, it's Mimi and Palmon are just wandering through this forest in a section of that section of the island where they're on. And they end up kind of getting accosted by Sukamon and Chuumon. I can never remember which is which. One of them is a giant pile of yellow, what looks like cudge or sludge or custard. Slustard. Ew. And the other one is a weird pink mouse. I don't remember which one is which. It doesn't really matter because they're like kind of Digimon that I think, if I remember correctly, are like described as sharing the same brain. Also, I think they're the Digimon that digivolves into Etamon. In the games, that Digimon digivolves into Etamon. But it's not the same Etamon. It doesn't digivolve during the course of the story. Actually, both Sukamon and Chuumon die, actually. But that's getting ahead of myself. But if you didn't know that, then I'm sorry. But what ends up happening is they kind of end up accosting Mimi and Palmon, blah, 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 we'll do this if you give us a kiss, blah, 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 blah. They try to grab Mimi and they grab her purse or the strap of her bag where her Digivice is, and her Digivice activates and glows, and it ends up kind of shocking the two of them. I wouldn't say, they didn't have a black gear inside of them, so it's not like they were evil Digimon. They were mischievous Digimon that like to cause trouble and stuff like that. Not evil, just mischievous. And it kind of makes them kind of stop, and then they're like, well, you said you wanted to find your friends, we'll help you find your friends. And they help Mimi get to where this other piece of island is going by, and they say that they saw like a kid and a bug type Digimon land over on the island, so that's Izzy. And what ends up happening is Devimon or Palmon and Mimi then end up, swinging over to the other island and kind of leaving the other two alone. After, it's like, well, where's our kiss? Because like they wanted a kiss from Mimi because she's a pretty girl, but she didn't give that to them. And then Mimi then proceeds to find her way to I think she's following like the tracker on her Digivice, maybe, I don't remember, but she ends up finding her way into this temple, and she ends up finding Izzy in the temple. And Izzy is currently trying to figure out there's more writing in the temple, and he's trying to decipher it and everything. And Mimi gets very, very annoyed by this, and she ends up she kind of, screams at Izzy that this is not fun. I don't want to do this. I just want to get out of here. I was, assaulted by a giant custard, and she wants to leave. And, Izzy and her kind of have a bit of an argument, and she runs off, and Tentomon follows her, and Palmon ends up staying with Izzy. This then results in Mimi running around, kind of getting lost in the temple, and then Izzy has to kind of, help guide her back to where he is. This also ends up involving them interacting with Centarumon, who is currently being controlled by a black gear. Unfortunately. If I remember correctly, Centarumon is, I think, a champion level Digimon. I think he's kind of a cool looking Digimon, if you ask me. But he makes his, ends up chasing Mimi and Tentomon through the temple. and Izzy and Palmon kind of lead them to certain place, lead them to where they can meet up, and then Izzy and Palmon show up, and then this reunites the Digidestin with their Digimon, and then they're able to. They actually end up seeing this giant carving. No, it's not yet that they see the giant carving. I think it's Palmon and Palmon and Tentomon Digivolve, so we get Kabuterimon and Togemon, and they Digivolve, and they destroy the black gear inside of, or the black gear that's, controlling Centarumon, and free him. Then Centarumon takes them into this hidden chamber, and he tells them that, oh, this is actually like a temple of the Digivice, or the temple of, like, for the Digivice or the Digidestin, and he explains kind of the history of the Digivice, that it allows the Digidestin to be able to better connect with their Digimon, and helps the Digimon be able to Digivolve. Which we've kind of seen this already in regards to whenever one of the Digimon Digivolves that has a Digidestin, that the Digivice glows and activates. We see this even more later on down the line, when they're able to Digivolve into their next form, and they have to have the crest there to activate it. So they are intertwined in that case. But what ends up happening is Palmon, or Leomon, then shows up, and he tries to attack them, and Mimi and Izzy then use their Digivices to kind of scare him off. This is when he's still currently being controlled by Devimon. They use their Digivices to scare him off, and he runs off. Centarumon then kind of tells them a little bit more, and he helps them, kind of learn a little bit more about, like, oh, this is what Devimon might be up to, and this might be a way to help, stop Devimon. Then when they, we don't really see Chuumon or Sukamon again for a little bit, but Centarumon does show up after their battle with Devimon, and he helps them build a raft. He's one of the Digimon that shows up and helps them build a raft so they can leave File Island and go to Server. Later, we don't see Centarumon again until the end of the season. But we do now see Chuumon and Sukamon again. Chuumon and Sukamon again, sorry. During when they first start interacting with Myotismon, once they're all reunited, after they're all separated again, after Tai goes back to the real world and then comes back, they end up interacting. They end up trying to sneak their way into, like, Myotismon's base, so they send Palmon and Agumon in, dressed as, I think it's Punk Agumon and Reggae Palmon, which I still find hilarious, and they make their way inside to try to gather some information, and this is where they see Chuumon and Sukamon again. They're kind of being recruited to be part of Myotismon's army. Not a very good selection from what he's got there. And they're trying to be trained by Nanimon. I mentioned this a couple of one of the other Digidestin videos, I think. Nanimon likes to get drunk. But in the original one, in the Japanese dub, of course, he gets drunk on, like, sake or whatever, or beer or whatever. In the English one, they translate it to he gets drunk on soda. Which I can kind of understand. Digimon was kind of one of those, after school cartoons or, like, Saturday morning cartoons. So it's like, well, we can't have him drinking alcohol, so we'll make it soda. But given the logic of the digital world, soda being something that can make a Digimon drunk actually kind of applies. Actually kind of works. But they, Chuumon and Sukamon don't really want to be there anymore. They thought it would be kind of fun and everything, get to cause some trouble in the real world, but they don't want to put in the training. They don't want to work. So they help with trying to get him drunk, and then they escape. Later, when the Digidestin come back from dealing with Myotismon in the real world, and they come back to fight the Dark Masters in the digital world, they then interact with Chuumon again. Okay, so this basically answers my question from earlier. Sukamon is the yellow custard pile of custard thing. Chuumon is the mouse. I could never remember which one is which. But what ends up happening is they land back in the digital world. The Digidestin land back in the digital world, and they kind of get attacked by the Dark Masters, and then they end up interacting with Chuumon. who's on his own, which is not the way that it's supposed to be, because him and Sukamon are kind of like connected at the hip type of a thing. As I said, they kind of share one brain, if I remember correctly. And Mimi, of course, recognizes him. She's the only one that's interacted with him, but she, of course, well, kind of the only one. The Agumon of Palmon kind of interacted with him. But she recognizes him, of course, and he recognizes her to show that this is the same Chuumon. And what ends up happening is he tells the Digidestined that, well, you know, after you guys defeated Myotismon, things were fine here. They were great, actually. Sukamon and I kept running around, and we kept eating and eating and eating and sleeping and eating and eating and eating and causing trouble. Then, when the Dark Masters started to create Spiral Mountain, Sukamon fell into a deep crack and died, and I got separated from him, and he's gone, and now I'm on my own. Which, as annoying as the mouse and the custard were, they don't deserve that. They don't deserve that. And so Sukamon is very, very weak at this point in time. And, you know, Mimi's like holding him in her hands, if I remember correctly. And then Piedmon shows up. And Sukamon actually sacrifices himself to protect Mimi from a knife thrown by Piedmon. And, you know, so Sukamon dies. And, you know, Sukamon, or Chuumon then dies, so they're both gone. And Mimi, of course, she ends up making her little, you know, little grave markers for several of the Digimon that they've lost. She's got one there because Waymon and Piximon also die in the same time frame, and they got Chuumon and Sukamon there, and then they also have a Wizardmon one there for them to show, like, you know, they're gone. And of course, they pointed that, well, once we fix the digital world, once we beat the Dark Masters and everything can go back to the way it's supposed to be, then Primary Village will come back, and then they can be reborn. Which, of course, yes, that happens. But before that, we have a little bit more with Centarumon. So what ends up happening is once the Digidestined, when they're up there kind of fighting and dealing with Piedmon during that last battle with the Dark Masters, when they're dealing with him, we cut to Genai and Centarumon, who are currently by what is discovered as the Wall of Fire, which is, of course, a reference to a firewall, which is like for like data blocking and, you know, virus blocking and things like that in a computer. I like how they do that with Digimon a lot. With it's like, okay, well, there's the continent, there's the island of File, there's the continent of Server, and then if I remember correctly, in like one of the other, I don't know if it's just in one of the video games or whatever, but there is a continent of like Folder or something like that. Or like an island of Folder or something. And I'm just like, okay, yeah, no, that's cute. We got File, Server, Folder, Wall of Fire, firewall joke. And Centarumon and Genai are there, and they end up telling Digidestined about a prophecy, this is about Apocalypse, and then they end up defeating Apocalypse. And what ends up happening is, of course, you know, then Centarumon returns alongside Genai, and he's in, you know, the picture at the, you know, at Primary Village when all the Digidestined and, you know, several of their Digimon friends that are still around take this big picture at Primary Village, and he's part of that picture, even though he hasn't really interacted with the Digimon too much, the Digidestined too much, but he's still there. And then he kind of goes off on his own. We don't really see any other Centarumon. Well, we see, I think there is a Digidestined in the Digimon World Tour that has a Centarumon. I think it's one of the American Digidestined, maybe, if I remember correctly. There is a Digidestined, I think, that does have a Centarumon, but I'll be going over that when I get to like the miscellaneous Digidestined. But then there's, we don't really see Centarumon again, but we do see Chuumon and Sukamon again. So 3 years later, when the Digidestined are, you know, able to go back to the digital world, and they have Davis and Yoli and Cody and such. This is during the time frame when Ken is still the Digimon Emperor, so he hasn't, you know, he's not good yet. He hasn't joined the team yet. But this is after Mimi and Yoli have kind of had their spat type thing / you know, reckoning with the Digitamamon, and Sukamon and Chuumon show up. And they try to get a kiss from Mimi again. And Mimi's response is punching them across the lake. Yeah, refers to Sukamon as a lemon custard and not a turd. Of course, that's in the English dub. I'm pretty sure in the Japanese dub, she does refer to him as a turd. But in the English dub, they're not going to do that. She's a lemon custard that gets punched away, which is just funny. Yeah, we don't ever end up seeing. I don't think we see Sukamon or Chuumon again. Not that I can remember. I mean, like they interact with Edamon, but Edamon is not Sukamon or Chuumon. There's a big difference there. In the games, they can digivolve into Edamon, but that's not the same thing as this. But that's basically what we have for them. So kind of a shorter video for that one. Next up, I think is Waymon. Yeah, Waymon should be next, and then I think it's Piximon. Yeah, let's just tug at my childhood heartstrings. You know, the heartstrings from my childhood multiple times throughout the course of these videos. Not that I don't do that anyway. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a nice rest of your day, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Bye. I can't take it anymore. I haven't had anything to eat, and my feet are killing me. And a giant yellow custard tried to kiss me, and all I want to do is get out of here.